put in the notes for yesterday that if, just to remind everybody that if Podbean or if Blog Talk is down and you can't get in, it's not working, to switch over to Podbean. And I've put the instructions, again, of, how you can load that to your phone and have it ready. And then when we go live, if you've clicked, like once you've loaded Podbean app onto your phone, then click that you're going to follow us. Now, it'll show up with two MindShifters Radio. The one with mine and Michael's picture on it is actually from Blog Talk, and the one with a glowing heart is the one from Podbean. And if you click that you're going to follow us, then when we go live on Podbean, it'll actually send you a notice that we are live, and then you can click and get into it. And there is looks like the old-timey phone handle that if you click on that, then it actually puts you in to call in to talk to us. And you do it all on your app on your phone, so it's not a number that you dial in or anything. But you can call in that way. You can type into the chat room in Podbean, and we can read your question over the air. So there's, it's a little more awkward just because we're not used to it. So I was really glad I turned on Blog Talk early this morning to see if it was back up, and it was. So, but those notes are in yesterday's. So if you go there, then it'll direct you of how to get Podbean. It's free. Get it on your phone, and that way you can still call in and we can still have a conversation. So we would like to do that instead of just having a blank day. And, we had talked about, since we didn't have any callers, do we just continue on and do a recording, but we'd just be talking to each other, Dr. Tim and I. And so we decided just to let it go. But if you have that on your phone, then the next time that Blog Talk's not working for some reason, then we can switch over and have that and still have a conversation, still be here to support you. So with that being said, I'm going to welcome Michael, and we do have an email from someone with a question when you're ready for it.
Cool. Well, the first thing I want to do, sweetie, is just acknowledge you for your brilliance in this field of computers and all the stuff you handle and how you keep the archives going and have organized this work that couple of wonderful volunteers are doing to archive into YouTube. I mean, just thank you. It's awesome.
You are welcome. And day before yesterday, you had said something about there was like 200 and some videos on our YouTube channel, and no, there's over 500 on there now. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize that they've done that much. Thank you both. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, the gentleman that's doing the special shows has finished that, and he said, he's got home projects through the weekend, and then he plans to get back on it. And then Andre has gone from January through October of 2021. So all of those shows are on there. And I've been attempting to upload all the ones from the beginning of the year. I'm about a week behind, even in the notes on Blog Talk, but I've downloaded those shows and plan on getting that put over there maybe this weekend. We've had Aria for 3 days, and actually she spent the night one night, so we've had her for like 72 hours or something, and she takes a lot of energy, and so I'm a little behind on that, but we're getting there.
And her still point session was absolutely awesome.
Yes, it was.
So welcome, everybody. Delighted that you're here. That we get to move forward to the next level of this conversation. I find that for me, I am getting a whole new level of teaching from having engaged in doing personal intensives with folks. It's sort of opened a whole new arena of understanding, and with the feedback that I've been getting, just what all is at work there. So, and you've got an email, so let's check out the questions from your email, sweetie.
Okay, and this is actually from Shawn, one of the gentlemen who's doing the transcripts or changes from MP3s to MP4s. He said, well, I've opened the wrong one. Hang on just one second. Let me find.
Right.
Okay. He says, these questions are inspired from a forgiveness seminar the other day. So are goals just thoughts? And if so, where do thoughts come from? Because I find myself waiting for thoughts, like practical ones. I don't make thoughts, and then there are thoughts not based in reality/actuality that get everyone into trouble through the imagination. A thought converts into a molecule. It's what mode our spirit is in that determines if it's flushed out or absorbed. Is that correct? Did you hear what I think I meant?
Okay. Well, maybe, honey, while I start to talk about that, you could just do a quick copy and paste it in a text and send it to me so I can follow the whole train of thought.
Sure.
So, first of all, my take is that most people think that because their mind is cycling information, they're thinking. And my take is that's not thinking. That a lot of what people cycle are nothing but genetic bits of information that get resonated into activity and come forward as a piece of information, but it's just a fragment of some kind of a past experience. So cycling information is no more thinking than, when I say to a computer, what's 2 plus 2, and it says 4, the computer didn't think about the answer, it just cycled information. My take is that a true thought is something that comes from being, and it's something that is created, intuited from being. It feeds us information. Oftentimes it can come from Ruka Dukucha. Remember the definition from the Aramaic of Ruka Dukucha is it's a feminine elemental force that, one, undoes the effects of our errors. And that means can go right down to restructuring our genes and the effects of our errors, which means every impact that any error that we ever made, if we turn it over, can be undone. And then the second part of the definition of Ruka Dukucha is she who teaches us the truth. So we can be fed thoughts directly from Ruka. And those thoughts I would offer are thoughts that either come from being or from Ruka. And we would label them, it's information, but we would label them as insight. Oftentimes, for me, a time when I get information that, like, I've never even conceived of. This work is not something that my mind made up. The insights that have come from it, I have been taught through intuition would be my offering from Ruka. And oftentimes, like for instance, if you go back to the early recordings of Why Is This Happening to Me Again, and you go back to 4-hour Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop, which I recorded about close to 40 years ago. Time flies when you're having fun. And you listen to any recordings since then, like if you listen to the audio track of Why Is This Happening to Me Again, we actually haven't changed that one in 20 plus years. We've done 2 or 3 switch outs of the 4-hour Why Is This Happening to Me Again video, but the original Why Is This Happening to Me Again audio, we haven't changed that in, 35 years, because we've gotten such good feedback in terms of how impactful and how powerful that particular Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop is, how the information came together. But if you go back to those early recordings, you'll notice that one of the key things that I do, it's one of the foundation points of Why Is This Happening to Me Again, within the opening minutes of the workshop, up until about I'm not even sure now, probably 15 years ago. At the top of the board, you'll notice on the whiteboard, if you look at any of those videos, I've got the words deny, suppress, project. And for 2.5 decades, that's what the top of the board was. That was the focal point. And one day, I'm breathing and just, focusing on understanding the work, and I am told directly, using my name, Michael, it's not suppress. I used to have deny, talk about denial, and that denial caused suppression, but it actually doesn't. And that was explained to me 15 years ago. And it wasn't my mind that explained it to me. It's like, Michael, that's not suppression, that's dissociation. And it's like, that was a whole new concept for me. And the difference between the two being that when I suppress something, well, I've hidden that for myself, but it's there, and I can access it. But when I realized the word and what I was shown, what I was taught, when I realized the word was dissociate, it's like, this is now unconscious. This is now, you're not just hiding this from yourself. This is now no longer yours. The difference, that's a mega shift in the workshop, that it's just something that's suppressed, as opposed to, you are cut off from this. You have now created, and this is part of what clued me into understanding that we are not designed to have an unconscious mind. The only reason anyone has an unconscious mind is because of the act of denial and dissociation and hiding information, and hiding beyond just, again, beyond the idea of suppression, is literally, in order for my mind to hallucinate a picture according to my instructions, and the instructions go something like this: this is not my fault, this is Bill's fault. Well, if I'm in pain, if I'm in some form of hostility or fear, I'm in error, I have a problem. But the minute that I say, and Bill did it to me, I have to hide, I have to dissociate from the very content that would show me what my error is. And so that's an example of, it's not just cycling information in the mind, which is what most people call thinking. And for me, the best definition I've been able to come up with, and this comes from my own guidance, and I haven't heard this anywhere else, I don't know that anybody else would agree. Some people might tell me that I'm crazy with this definition. But my best definition of thinking is that thinking is the ability to keep love conscious, active, and present when something less than love comes up in your mind. And the reason why thinkers are geniuses is because if you keep love present, it's the master solvent. And if there's error in your mind and error surfaces and you're able to keep love present, that error dissolves, which means you'll now have access to truth. Now you become a genius. So thoughts, I would offer, thinking is not just bits of information in a computer or in the mind. It really is that ability to keep love present, which dissolves errant energies and gives us access to deeper levels of truth and removes us from the hidden parts of our own minds. So some thoughts, or what people call thoughts, would be just something resonated out of genetics. And what many people do with the thoughts that are resonated out of genetics, because they're in denial and dissociation, is they then use those thoughts, those fragments of information, to literally build perception, the constructs of their mind. And to me, the genius of Yeshua showing us that that whole process is driven by goals, and when you cancel a goal, you get to access the dissociated parts of your mind. You get to open your own unconscious. That's like the most brilliant piece of information to ever come to Earth in the realm of psychology or psychiatry. What you would call thoughts that are not based, the next thing you say here is, then there are thoughts that are not based in reality, actuality, that get everyone into trouble through the imagination. imagination is a way to bring in information. I mean, it literally is a spiritual faculty, and it's designed to benefit us. I would think that if there are thoughts that are getting you into trouble, they're thoughts that are coming from somewhere other than being. They're not coming from, it's information that is not coming from being. And then your next thought was a thought converts into a molecule. So what Bruce Lipton is showing, and if you just Google Bruce Lipton just go to YouTube and put your search in for Bruce Lipton, and he shows that in the laboratory, what they can do is they can track the fact that when a piece of information enters the mind, it also shows up in the so-called body as a molecule, as a neuropeptide. And that neuropeptide circulates around in the structure till it finds a cell with a receptor site that matches. And then, so you're saying a thought converts into a molecule. It's what mode our spirit is in that determines if it's flushed out or absorbed. I'm not sure what that means, so maybe you could drop me a note with a little more information, and I understand your did you hear what I think I meant? Because that last line, that it's what mode our spirit is in that determines if it is flushed out or absorbed. I need some clarification on that one. So if you happen to be on the show, push 1, and we could chat about it. Otherwise, and when Jeannie sends you this back, then perhaps we can have a little more conversation about it. So that's my my take on that question. And if you're out there in listener land, our call-in number is 563-999-3581, 563-999-3581. If you're on one of those stations where we can't see you in our control panel, if you call that number, you're listening to the show directly. And then if you push 1, raises a hand, and we'll be having a conversation. So, Machine, do we have anybody out there with a hand up in the phone queue or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet. So we have 40 minutes. Come on, somebody press 1. We weren't here yesterday. You've got to have some thoughts.
And we can move back to the information I've been trying to get covered for the last 2 weeks. So if we tap back in, the last thought I ended with was the idea that with tools, our painful experiences can be the opportunity for monumental healing, literally the chance to forgive, undo, or dismantle generations of inherited repeating traumas, which show up as those fragments of information we were just talking about coming to awareness. And of course, this would be a good place to watch Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And we do have the latest Why Is This Happening to Me Again? It used to be that was always a paid workshop. It was one of the ways that we supported traveling, paying our own expenses, and doing our workshops free. And we did I think it was about a 3 hour and 20 or 3 hour and 40 minute workshop back in 2020 or 2021. In any event, if you go to our YouTube channel, type in Michael Rice, you'll be looking at our YouTube videos and go down the list, and you'll find the latest Why Is This Happening to Me Again workshop. So, be a good place to listen. And because life abhors us holding on to or hiding disease energies, denial, that act of speaking or thinking as though something outside of us is the cause of something moving inside of us, denial is the main tool people use to avoid looking at what they're pained by. The act of denial guarantees we'll experience repeatedly the impact of the energies that we hide from ourselves. Carl Jung says it this way: until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct our lives, and we will call it pain. We will call it fate. So recognizing that pain has a purpose. It's a designated fertilizer. It's designed to make your ears grow. It's a messenger that shows us where our disintegrative energies are stored. Stand in willingness to look at where disintegrative energy is stored, acquire the skill of dealing with it and the tools with which to do it, and you'll find that your pain begins to disappear. Denial, on the other hand, causes the mind to hide or dissociate from the direct experience of the painful energetic patterns that are moving in you at any given time. Denial seems to protect us from pain, but our hidden patterns impact and distort what we call thinking, our decisions, our feelings, our perceptions, behaviors, diseases, cellular chemistry, attitudes, and our creative processes as well. Many people, since these are the energies with which we create our lives, wonder why life gives us bittersweet experiences. Gee, wonderful things come along, then all of a sudden something comes and bites me. Why? Because there's something in me that's resonating that I don't want to feel, that I don't want to deal with. And that resonance, it's like life is set up to respond to your whole energetic field. Recognize that everything, every piece of energy that you hold from you is a frequency. It is a vibration. Nikola Tesla, man is responsible for so much in our modern energetic world, including, like, we wouldn't have our houses wired with electricity if it weren't for Nikola Tesla. He said, if you want to understand the universe, start to think in terms of vibration. So when you realize that every energy that you hold in you has a specific frequency, and energy by definition is motion. One of the expressions of energy is motion, and anything that moves in another medium creates an energy wave. Think about you're standing on the edge of a pond, and the pond is perfectly still. And you pick up a rock and you throw it out in the center of the pond. What happens? You get waves. Wherever that rock interacts with the water, there is an interference pattern. The interference pattern tells you about the energy that sourced the pattern. For instance, if I took a little tiny pea-sized pebble, I can tell something by the wave that leaves it when it hits the water. I can tell something about that pebble, i.e., little tiny wave must have been a pretty small pebble. If, on the other hand, I throw an 8-inch diameter rock into the water, I can tell something about that rock by its interaction with the surface of the water, the size of the wave that it generates. So recognize that as an energetic being, every thought you've ever thought, every feeling you've ever felt, every reality you've ever structured in your mind, they are integrated energy patterns that are constantly sending out signals, constantly sending out radio waves, just like the TV tower over there is constantly sending out a signal. So your whole physiology, your genes, every piece of information that flows through you is setting up a field. And through this law called resonance, and the law of resonance basically says that when two energy fields are in tune or in harmony with each other, there's an interchange of energy between them. So through this law called resonance, life is designed to bring us someone who's in tune with our most powerful energetic patterns contained within the mind. The more we push down and denied our pain, the more we blame others for what we're feeling, the more deeply our patterns are embedded, and the more powerfully they resonate as a result of being pushed on. Imagine that I have a 3-foot diameter spring sitting on the floor over here. Can the spring sitting on the floor do anything? No. But what if I come along and I push down on the spring and I lock it? Push down and I lock it, and I push down and I lock it. And then I get 3 or 4 big guys to go over and really help me. And man, we push that puppy down and lock it. What happens when I let the lock off? All of that stored energy causes the spring to rocket. Well, the more we blame others for what we're feeling, the more amplitude the energy wave is that resonates from that particular patterned energy. And anyone who has the matching energy, anybody with the matching bag of garbage or the matching bag of beauty, is going to be drawn to us and drawn to express that energy in themselves. And if it's a dis-ease energy, then somebody's going to show up in resonance with our dis-ease energy, and their behavior will tend to be driven by behaviors that will then arouse in us what it is we've been hiding. Literally, a certain condition in one person's mind will tend to resonate or activate that same condition in another person's mind. If it's hostility, then people are going to resonate somebody with the matching bag of garbage. If it's wonderment and beauty, then people are going to resonate somebody in the matching bag of wonderment and beauty. So when you realize that life is set up, like the genius of how the game is set up, so that you don't get away with anything. Remember in the scriptures they said nothing will remain hidden, everything will be made known in the light of day. It's all going to show up. We think by hiding it, we're never going to have to deal with it. It's through this law of resonance that we get to confront, and if we choose to take responsibility, correct the patterns. And of course, the tool of correction is first century Aramaic forgiveness. It's a tool that leads inside and heals the disturbed energies we've been carrying, in some cases perhaps for generations. Instead of dealing with pain as life intended, most people get stuck holding those energetic patterns in denial, hidden. And if I hold those energetic patterns in denial, guess who's going to show up? Somebody with the matching bag of garbage. So you can't keep things hidden for too long. So when we do this game of hiding from ourselves, we create an unnatural state, this unconscious mind, and out of those unconscious patterns, a chain of events is created, a whole world, literally perception, out of that which we've denied and dissociated from. Information inside of us is resonating into activity, literally creates a whole world that we call perception, a false world where we blame others for what's moving in us, or where we blame others for what we're feeling. What we're unknowingly doing to ourselves with our own minds sooner or later becomes conscious. So our minds use the energies moving in us, the energies resonated by them, literally. If I hold something I've denied and dissociated from, I'm sending out an energy field. Somebody with a matching bag of garbage is going to tend to show up and be motivated to do a behavior based on what's resonating in them, based on what I'm sending out, the energy that I'm sending out. And when they do the behavior they do, they literally then resonate or give us the opportunity to look at what it is we're hiding from ourselves. For me, and what most people do is then create an image of them, that is, whoever it is that resonated what they don't want to deal with, out of what's moving in themselves. So now we have a false picture directed by our errant minds, and they show up inside of us in our perceptual construct with our problem attached. And, of course, the way to tell that this is true is just to notice you're the one who's feeling it. When there's upset and there's pain, what's moving in you is what's moving in you. So as an example, a person who feels hate because they're a container for hatred. And by the way, hate kills the hater. Anger kills the angry. And now there is the object of the hatred or anger and is blamed by the hater for the presence of hate. But if you really start being honest with yourself, you can't avoid the conclusion that hatred or any other emotion is an internal experience. And probably the second most common drug on the planet is anger. Most people think of anger as an emotion. It's not an emotion. Anger is an anesthetic. It's an internally generated drug that helps us to keep things hidden from ourselves. So if one is a container for hatred, but their mind is showing them images of everybody else, can you do enough out there to try to force them to change? It was interesting. I listened to, somebody had sent me a link to a podcast the other day, and I listened to it, and this person was defining anger as a tool for changing other people. It's like, no, anger is a tool for anesthetizing me against my own pain. So if one realizes that they're a container for anger or sadness or grief or rage or fear or hatred or vengeance, where's the only place that can be changed? It can only be changed in the container. It can't be changed anywhere else. So the process of forming unconscious perceptions leaves us believing the fallacy that as we look at the pictures or projections generated by our brains, our self-generated perceptions, that we've been led to believe that our eyes are showing us something that's outside of us. And it's a lie. Codependence and denial have the identical definition. The belief that someone or someone else, someone outside of us or someone else, is responsible for what you're doing to yourself with your own mind. And the fallacy is that someone else is the cause of what you're feeling, that's inside of you. And nothing could be further from the truth. And the belief that others cause you to feel, or that others are responsible for the energy that's moving in you. So this errant conclusion that somebody else is responsible for what's moving in me leaves me stuck in the belief of, why are they doing this to me again? That those experiences are forced on us from the outside, when the truth is that the world of pain perception is a totally internal, self-generated, self-imposed world. This self-imposed world, which, without having and applying the tools to change the content of one's own minds, seems impossible to escape, is usually based on generations of errant perception, generations of denial and unresolved pain. Generations of denial and unresolved pain. So let's look at I'll check in with Jean. Miss Jean, do we have anybody? Is this making sense for everybody? Does it arouse any questions or thoughts? If so, again, our call-in number is 563-999-3581. Call that number, you're listening to the show. And then if you push one, that raises a hand in the control panel. We'll be having a conversation.
Nobody has a hand up. However, it resonated for me, some information. I was working with a lady last night, And I may or may not have given her the correct direction. However, it kind of goes along with what you're talking about, the thoughts and the feelings and the emotion, and attempting to get her to get out of her story and go inside. And so what I was telling her was, your thoughts can be lying to you, and usually are. I said, but instead of focusing on the thought, I said, go inside and look at the feeling. So the example I gave her was, I feel sad because somebody dissed me. So instead of thinking about them dissing you, because in their thoughts they may have just been having a bad day and their tone of voice came across wrong, and in their mind they weren't even directing anything at you. So, by saying that this is what they meant is a lie. So instead of trying to figure it out or stick with the thought, then go with the feeling. Why do I feel sad? Well, why do I care about what somebody else thinks of me? What's the sadness about? What does it originate with? Is this a repeat all my life that I've carried sadness or fear or whatever? And focus on releasing the sadness. Go inside and say, okay, what does this look like inside of me? How does it feel inside of me? And can I change it? And, of course, we can change it by changing the thought, but instead of thinking, oh, they dissed me, then think they must have a hard day, and they reflected it, and I took it on, but it wasn't really about me. Something was going on in them. So changing the thought can help release the sadness or the thought, oh, they're against me or they're trying to tear me down, may not be true at all for them. Your mind creates the meaning that it has for you, and you can change that. It has nothing to do with fixing the outside problem or changing anything outside of you. Emotion is energy in motion, so it's energy that's moving around inside of you. And, of course, if you choose to hang on to it, it's eventually going to land on a cell and lock into the cell. It's going to make a physical manifestation of that sadness or anger or whatever, and you don't need that. So this is the thought behind the feeling, but I'm going to let go of the thought, and I'm going to concentrate on the feeling. Why is it resonating in me so strongly? And then I went on. But is that kind of along the correct line?
You're right on track. That's it. Exactly. You'll remember I've played the song for you before. In the early days at Heartland, was a gentleman named the Singing Dentist, Joel Goldstein, that lived at Heartland with his family for a couple of years. And he was a music director, and he wrote a song called Stuck in My Story, My Pain and My Glory. And the whole song is about the repeating experience if I don't ever take responsibility for what's moving inside of me.
Right.
Most people live their whole lives in their story.
Yeah, I told her, I said, hanging on to the story and staying in it is a distraction. It keeps you in victimhood, and what's that going to get you? It might get you attention, and some people might go, oh, my gosh, what you had to go through, bless your heart, and all that, but is that what you really want? You want to go inside and change what's going on in you, and until you go inside and look at what's in you without the story, what's the sadness, what's the fear, and go inside yourself and drop the story, let go of the story, and just say, what's going on in me? Why does this feeling keep coming up? And then move into, okay, this experience happened, but this is what I'm doing to heal from it, and hopefully then help someone else who's stuck in that same kind of a victimhood to be able to get out of it as well.
Exactly. Right on, honey. And, of course, as I shared in the workshop this past weekend in the MindShifters and Still Point Breathing Club, when you choose to ask somebody to be responsible for what's moving in them or for what they're doing or what they've done, you have to be careful because you may be playing John the Baptist, and they may want to take off your head. That's just one of the risks of inviting people to come out of their denial, is then the mind will tend to puke everything that's uncovered onto the person who's, in the culture we have a saying, don't kill the messenger. It's not about the outside, but when the messenger uncovers something, if somebody doesn't have the tools, the tendency is to take it out on the messenger. Any other thoughts for you in that regard, sweetie?
No, I think that's it. I just kind of wanted to, it was, along the same lines what you were saying with what I had said to her last night. I just want to make sure I was on track with what I told her.
You are absolutely on track, sweetie.
And nobody has a hand up yet, so I'd say keep going.
Okay. So then...
Oh, you have a hand just went up.
Oh, okay, perfect. Let's say hello.
Okay, I think it's Dusty, 904. You're on the air.
Well, we haven't heard that young man's voice in a while. Welcome. Aloha.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Some things you said resonated quite powerfully with me. And first of all, that thing you said about thinking, incorporating some love, I always like that. I always like that about this program and your presentation. You bring that in, love in some way. I have I won't even say it's an analog, and maybe it's just a further expression of why is this happening to me. I was listening, right, and there was a book written, I think it was in the early 80s, I'm not sure. Sheila Ostrander, it was Women Who Love Too Much, and kind of the same sort of thing. And it's about why do women specifically, not gender, keep going back to, abusive men, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this therapist I know, and I will mention her name because I think she is one of the most amazing beings. She's passed. Jean Jensen up in Sun Valley, Idaho, had a class. And what she did is she organized a class around that book. And what she wound up with was about a dozen women who were, quote, incest survivors, unquote.
Right.
They had a class that was 6 weeks long, twice a week. It wasn't cheap. Don't sign up. Don't even think about coming unless you're all in. This is not a dip your foot in. It was hand in hand with, I will say, 12-step thinking at the time in some ways. So I didn't know about this. Nobody except they knew about this. This was a very, very powerful private 6 weeks. They had, I think, they were at the end of the third session. Most of the same women kept signing up. So Jean dropped a bomb on them. At least it was a bomb for them. She said, how about we invite some men into our group? And there was like a gasp. Aren't they the enemy? Aren't they the enemy? And she goes, no, it's not about gender. It's about behavior. And and they still didn't want any part of it. And finally, Jean said, I will pick a list of 3 guys from this valley. I don't know how many people lived there. It was a very high-end valley, I have to say. Education level was pretty high, and maybe 15,000 people, I don't know. And
were you one of the men?
Well, evidently I was, because I got a call from Jean. And Jean said, I will pick these men, and you vote. And I have to tell you this part, because I still almost, it's all I can do to hold the tears of just, oh my God, back every time I feel it. I feel it. she called me up. She said, well, and she told me the story. And because she knew I had expressed the desire, I knew her personally, to work on my stuff, which wasn't sexual, but it was everything else, from childhood on, blah, 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 blah. So I got to join that group if I want. She said, you want to do this thing? I went, yeah. So I went up there, and I have to tell you that we sat in a circle, maybe, I don't know, 10, 11, counting Jean, maybe a dozen, no more. And everybody would go around the circle pretty much and tell their story. And I've never seen this like this before or since. Everybody there held this space sacred for whoever was talking and made it safe, just like a bubble of loving intent around them. Honey, you say whatever you got to say. And nobody was going, oh, I'm just, you know how in conversation a lot of people, all they're thinking about is what they want to say next. No, there was none of that. You listen. No questions. So it came around to me, and I thought, what the heck? And I just dove into my stuff, and we went around, and I think I did a couple classes myself. Part of the point is that here are, talk about things, not just denial. These women were valorous. When I play taps down at the beach, I play for the fallen, the military fallen, but for valor in all walks of life. These women embodied it like nobody. To be able to go back to when you were a little girl and were repeatedly molested, and you're willing to go back into that and not pretend it didn't happen, or be so numbed out and damaged that you can't go back for some reason.
Yeah. They
would bring things up and reaching into that. And I mean, there was wailing. Every class had 3 or 4 people that wailed, and I'll have to say I was one of them every now and then because of my stuff. And one thing that Jean taught and kept mentioning, and it was so true, because I mean, it was definitely true for me. It was true for all of us, but I had a situation. I spent, months just working on one thing. It was sometimes old damages. Why is this happening to me? Kind of thing. Old damages just seem like, especially if you're very young, are like dark, kind of shadowy things. And you go, oh, I just made that up. No, that didn't really happen. Did that happen? I don't know. I don't think. No, I'm just making that. She goes, no. Treat it as if it happened. And 90% of the time, it had happened. And these, oh man, this is the most powerful dynamic group I'd ever been into, and I think it parallels what you're doing, and I've got a little more to say on it. But do you think that is a good parallel or an analog?
Sounds right on to me, and I would like to just take a moment with you to acknowledge Jean Jensen, though she's not in her body anymore.
Oh,
she may well be listening in, just acknowledging her for being able to create such a powerful space. That's awesome. As I do that, and I don't know whether I'm getting that from Jean right now, but my whole body's just tingling right now.
Yeah, I'm crying. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, you're right on, brother. Right on. And she was, oh my God, and she's brilliant too. She was, I guess, I don't know what the right term is these days, but she was a lesbian too, kind of thing, you know, and I didn't know if I was walking into a charged situation or what, but I knew her well enough to know that she was the real deal. She was,
right.
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging Jean. I really appreciate that. And
we need more people like that.
Oh, boy. Oh, and people like, I can't tell you how many people, I mean, most cultures are built on a certain huge amount, actually, of cognitive dissonance, you know,
yep.
and
denial.
And absolute denial. And, you know, I'll believe what I want to believe when I want to believe it. And that whole thing, you know, like the Greeks, oh, we're the first ones with the democratic thing, although a third of them were slaves, right? And think, you know, it's just, this is all nonsense. I mean, it's down to the individual. People like you and Jean and others that step up to the plate. And I will have to say, after, I mean, I did 2 6-week classes, and then there was an ongoing thing that started at the end of that, and I joined it for about a year or so. And I got so much cleaned out of me that was absolutely tearing me apart, but I couldn't get a handle on it. And she...
Life without tools is hell.
What's that?
Life without tools is hell. And that's where
man.
Most people live.
That's right. That's right. And I know people that have just, I mean, it's all relative to, I guess, everything's relative, I suppose. But
it depends how much hell your relatives lived in.
yeah, dun. And but you know, how many people do I know that had just a smidge of what these gals went through, and what some of your people go through, and won't even go near it. Sometimes because it's just, they're just numb, and other times because I don't want to do it, or I've got enough money that I can just pretend everything is fine, or whatever it is, you know, whatever the case is. But I want to acknowledge, thank you for acknowledging Jean. I didn't see that coming. Man, that was beautiful. But these women, and I guess other than to say that I was helped through some things that I don't know how else I would have gotten through it, was the fact that I came to the conclusion, now this is just me speaking, just first person, but in my opinion, anybody that molests girls, it's second-degree murder. And that's what I saw murder. In that. What's that?
It's a soul assault. And, and it's not just women. Over the years...
No, it's not just women. No, it's not.
I've run into just about as many men who've been sexually abused as women.
Oh, okay. I haven't run into as many, but you would be in a position to have that kind of balance. But the ones I have run into still won't deal with it. They'll do other things. They'll anesthetize in other ways. And but my hat's off to anybody, whether they take your class or a Gene Jensen type class, if there ever is one like that again, that are willing to go into their stuff and be a warrior. That's what a real warrior does, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh. You know, my take in working with people over the last 50 years is that I would venture a guess that somewhere between 60 and 70% of people in this culture in America today have been sexually abused.
Boy, that's a high number, brother. Wow.
A high number.
Whoa. No, that's disturbing.
And I'm talking both male and female.
Right, exactly. But still, That's mega disturbing. And
bizarre.
Especially, I'll say especially, also, because in this culture, none of it's supposed to happen. That didn't happen. Don't talk about it. And I know all the abuse that I went through. My best friend didn't know about it. Nobody knew. Mine was not sexual. It was the only reason I got in that room. But it was every bit as intense. So,
and the only way that it's ever going to end is when people open up and clean it out, because it becomes a power person dynamic and just gets passed from generation to generation.
Yeah, It kind of boils down to an individual stand, don't you think? I mean, each person's got to be their own advocate in a sense, I mean, you've got to, in your soul, you've got to want to be more. You've got to want to be who you really are, or what you really are. And what was one last little note about this room, because this room was just unbelievably powerful. They called themselves incest survivors, but there was 4 or 5 of them that weren't surviving, and I could see it. I never said anything about it, but I could see it. Not everybody does well, no matter. But they were in there swinging. They went down. If they did go down, they went down swinging. God bless them, every one of them. And so I don't know. That's my part of my pep talk.
No.
And I read.
So let's join, and let's invite everybody that's on the show right now, join in opening the space of safety for a shift in this culture where sexual abuse at whatever age, at whatever stage of life one's experienced, that it becomes safe to open, clear out, and that there are enough people who know how to hold a space for that, that we can really, truly begin the healing of this dynamic. I know for me, one of the things, you hear me talk quite a bit about my granddaughter, and she's just getting ready to turn 6. And we're continuously educating her, and one of the things we're working with is developing in her an awareness of what's going on around her and of her power, so that she can stay clear in a culture that is so rampant with
and I think that's beautiful.
And sexual abuse.
And since we've got a minute and you opened up that door, may we all just open up our hearts for the beneficence of just what you stated. We could all be together and do together and just,
Time for healing. Jeannie, you had a thought, sweet?
Well, I'm not sure there's time now. I was going to read, there's a song, you can look up the lyrics. It's called Warrior.
Go for it.
By Demi Lovato. And it's this, yeah.
Reading with you, sweetie. Go for it.
This is a story that I have never told. I got to get it off my chest and let it go. I need to take back the light inside you stole. You're a criminal, and you steal like you're a pro. All the pain and all the truth I wear like a battle wound. So ashamed, so confused. I was broken and bruised, but now I'm a warrior. Now I've got thicker skin. I'm a warrior, and I'm stronger than I've ever been. And my armor is made of steel, and you can't get in. I'm a warrior, and you can't hurt me again. Out of the ashes, I'm burning like a fire. You can save your apologies because you're nothing but a liar. I've got shame and I've got scars that I will never show. I'm a survivor in more ways than you know. Because now I'm a warrior. There's a part of me I can't get back. A little girl grew up too fast. All it took was once. I'll never be the same. Now I'm taking back my life today. Nothing left that you can say, because you're never going to take the blame anyway. Now I'm a warrior. I've got thicker skin. I'm a warrior. I'm stronger than I've ever been. My armor is made of steel. You can't get in. I'm a warrior. You can never hurt me again.
Breathing with you, sweetie.
That's beautiful.
Breathing with you. And isn't it bizarre that we live in a country that is on the verge of possibly electing a man who has self-proclaimed that that's exactly what he does?
That's the writing on the wall in blood, yes. And
absolutely bizarre.
And in that poem of Jeannie's, there's probably more people that have been abused that actually can take it on, but I don't know that I've ever run into what might be an abuser that ever acknowledged a drop.
We've seen it in intensives.
Oh, good. I'm glad to know, because I've yet to see.
Yeah, we've had some. Maybe the next show would, tomorrow we'll talk about that. But there are a couple of cases where we've had people who've admitted and processed with someone who was processing having been abused. And we'll talk about that tomorrow on the show.
Well, thank you, one and all.
In the meantime. All right, my friend, thank you for bringing that conversation up. It sounds like one that it's time to come up, and we'll open the show tomorrow, and I'll share a couple of instances where the perpetrator and the abuser type, not that they were a matched pair, but in different circumstances, came together at Heartland and really did just some monumental healing work together. So talk about that tomorrow. In the meantime, everybody, for the best year yet of your eternal life, an awesome gift to give the world. Blessings.